Hi everybody, my name is Carmen Shank and I wanted to talk to you today about the equilibrium of simplicity. Now this is from chapter 4 of my book, Kitchen Simplicity, and I'm not going to read you the chapter, but what I want to talk to you about is that zone, for lack of a better word, and on one end of the zone is materialism, and we are trying to find our worth from buying stuff. Now, marketing kind of really hits on this mark because the whole idea of marketing is to make you aware of a need you didn't know you had, and then say, by the way, here's the product that's going to solve that need. So marketing is all about creating a sense of awareness of one way that we are lacking, or one thing that we maybe don't do as well as we could. And then, of course, they're showing you the product that's going to help solve that problem. Well, we don't always need to be reminded of all of our problems, and constantly being bombarded with these messages that we aren't enough, that we haven't done enough, that we maybe our value would be increased by owning a purse or a pair of shoes or driving a certain car. Those messages may be more shaming than anything, because when you decide against buying those things, maybe you are accepting the marketer's perspective on you? I mean, if I'm not driving a Mercedes, am I less than? Am I not experiencing the BMW, the ultimate driving machine? Maybe I'm just driving a not quite ultimate. I mean, how much of that input, that marketing, do we accept into our lives, and do we allow it to tell us who we are and what we are about? I think that's my question. So we have that one extreme, the whole thing of marketing and materialism and consumerism. Well, I want it, so I'm going to buy it, and marketing telling us that we need it. And on the other extreme, and this has become really, really popular lately, I think, is minimalism. And that is the whole thing that stuff can't make me somebody that I'm not already. And as a matter of fact, stuff can get in the way of things that matter. And so we work at getting rid of as much as possible. We minimize. Maybe we'll go tiny and live in a small space. Maybe we will just empty out the space that we currently have. Whatever it is, it's still very focused on the stuff. Materialism, we're focused on the stuff because we think it's going to make us somebody we're not. And with minimalism, we're focused on getting rid of the stuff because we don't want that stuff to be a burden. And I think both are, in a way, an overemphasis on the stuff. And what I want to find is that place of equilibrium that's maybe not quite in the middle, but maybe it's closer to the minimalism side of the spectrum than it would be to the materialism side. And this is all about, well, see, here's the thing. I read that Marie Kondo book about the life-changing magic of tidying up, and she suggests that you go through your home and you look at the items in your house and you ask yourself the question, does this spark joy? Now, this reminds me of that whole pursuit of happiness idea, and I've come to believe that the more that you pursue something, the more you tell yourself that you don't have it. The more you seek something, the more you outline to yourself your lack. So when we look to our stuff to give joy, and actually literally pick up our stuff and look at it, are you giving me joy? Okay, well, you're out of here. What's actually happening is that we're focusing on what should be the side effect instead of the real goal. So let's just change this a little bit. Let's talk about life purpose. Let's talk about those things that make life meaningful. Now, the minimalists talk about these things a great deal. And that's fantastic. We need to be thinking about who we are and what our purpose is. And if we focus our downsizing or our right sizing or our homes, just our kind of mentality about living in a space, if we focus it on the purpose that we have for this season of our lives, and we stock our lives to fit that purpose and let the rest go, That's not exactly minimalism, because there's going to be times when you keep things that you maybe that minimalism would say you don't need. But maybe it's more purposeful, and maybe it's aiming at a better goal than joy, because when you aim at something like joy, like happiness, the pursuit of happiness, you quickly discover that the more you aim for something out there, what you're telling yourself is that you don't have it in here. Well, if you aim at purpose instead and think in terms of, this is what I'm after in this part of my life, in this season of my life, then we stock our lives to meet that need. And the side effect is joy. The side effect maybe is happiness. Instead of the happiness being the goal and never quite reaching it, it's an outgrowth of the way we approach this thing. So we've got materialism on one side, we've got minimalism on the other side, and somewhere over here, kind of close to minimalism, is simplicity, living a simple life. And that's where you actually just get to relax a little bit, and you're not like freaked out over, oh, I own 101 things, I have to get rid of that last one thing and then I'll be no. Materialism is an overemphasis on stuff. Minimalism, still an overemphasis on stuff. Let's find that place of equilibrium where we are so focused on the purpose that we have in our lives in this season that we will stock our lives to fit that purpose and let the rest go. We don't need the burden of carrying all that stuff around, of cleaning it, of storing it, of paying for it, of, debt service and all of that. We don't need that. But neither do we need to be going into the kitchen getting ready to make something and realizing you no longer have the equipment to make it. So there is this wonderful place, and I call it purposeful simplicity. It's this wonderful place where, you know what, I am in my small kitchen. I have a KitchenAid. I do have a blender. I have a blender. I don't use it very often. I actually don't use it. I use it like, funny thing, I use it to make laundry detergent. That's why I keep the blender around. In our tiny house, the only kitchen appliance I kept was the blender. And now that I have this little kitchen instead of my tiny house kitchen, which was this big, I have the KitchenAid out, and we make bread quite a bit. So the KitchenAid gets used. The blender doesn't get used much anymore because we're not doing smoothies and juices like we used to. I used to have this amazing big Breville sous chef food processor. Had that in the restaurant. It was kind of crazy expensive. Even my chef didn't use that thing. He was happy to use a mandolin instead of pulling out the food processor. It was bulky to pull out, it was bulky to use, and then you had to clean all those moving parts. Now, it's a fantastic piece of equipment. I'm not trying to denigrate this particular brand or this product. I'm just saying that there's a much simpler way to get the job done, and even my professional chef in our restaurant knew that a mandolin was easier to deal with than pulling out the full-blown food processor. So that's not something I feel like I need anymore. And our sense of need is kind of an interesting thing anyway, because we think we need things because we're used to having them. That's a different thing than being actually needing something. So navigating this transition from materialist to minimalist to this equilibrium space that's over here kind of close to minimalism, that's going to involve actually challenging these notions of what we need and what we don't need. So I find that space of simplicity and equilibrium very life-giving. I've already gone through and gotten rid of a bunch of stuff, and there's a little bit more to go. I will admit that in a heartbeat. But instead of looking for minimalism and materialism, let's aim at simplicity, because it's a beautiful place, and it is a place of joy. I can walk in my kitchen and look around and not have any of these malignant things looking back at me, scolding me. And that's a good thing. That's a very good thing. Thank you so much for listening. My name is Carmen Schenk. I'm the Tiny House Foodie, and I really appreciate your time. Thank you. Bye.